The third passive skill that she had developed last night couldn't have been timelier. In the dark, Lin Sanju managed to avoid the kitchen knife thrown at her from the staff room with a quick dodge. She silently thanked the heavens. Without her overall physical enhancement ability, she would not have been able to dodge the smelly kitchen knife that Wang Sisi suddenly threw at her, much less the attacks of that crafty and speedy green vine. The kitchen knife fell not far from her and made a clanging sound. In the time that Wang Sisi's attack missed, Lin Sanju had already nimbly jumped backward and conveniently closed the door with a bang, blocking other incoming attacks. It was only then that she heard a series of dragging sounds from the other side. After that, she heard the muffled voices of both Luther and Marcy. Through the two doors, Marcy's voice had an unmasked anxiousness. "Xiaoju, are you all right? Try to leave quickly, we do not have the keys to enter." "I am all right, I already came out of the room," Lin Sanju replied loudly. "The little desiccated corpse pulled off the knife in its mouthpart and threw that at me just now. But I am unharmed," Wang Sisi hissed angrily as Lin Sanju suddenly felt the vibration of the door she was leaning against. It was as if it had been struck violently by something, probably Wang Sisi's mouthpart. Lin Sanju took a few steps away from the door hurriedly and quickly relocked the door with her key. After hearing Wang Sisi's frustrated screech, Lin Sanju took out the lighter in her pocket and lit it. Ever since her body had been enhanced, her night vision had improved significantly. Even without light, she could see with about 60% to 70% clarity in the dark, so she did not need to look blindly for a light source like a moth. However, that was also the reason why she did not carefully check her surroundings carefully. She was totally focused on returning to the supermarket and ran straight in when she saw a door, and that was how she came face to face with Wang Sisi's deformed face for a brief moment just now. Since she could not return immediately right now, she decided to use the light from her lighter to explore the area. When her eyes swept across the area, Lin Sanju promptly held her breath uncontrollably. Just 10 steps away from her, she saw rows of goods shelves which were at least the height of 2 persons. At one glance, the shelves were different from those in the supermarket. They were almost touching the ceiling, and each level on the shelves was filled with properly packaged boxes. She could tell that the majority of the boxes were food and drinks. She suppressed her excitement and jogged to the front of the shelves. She could not help softly touching the boxes of mineral water with her hands. Last night, after her ability was discovered, the 3 of them started from the scratch and counted the amount of food and water they had. They had to concede that what they had left was an aftermath of a pillage. Even though there was quite a significant amount of goods left, but after what they had consumed, there were only enough supplies for another 2 weeks. "I was wondering why we couldn't find the warehouse," Lin Sanju laughed till her eyes glistened. Speaking to herself, she softly cursed, "So you have been hiding here, with a desiccated corpse guarding the door, no less." When she would go back, she would have to think of a method to store all these things in the warehouse. The bottles of life source, wrapped in a pink hard case, glowed under the light of the flame. As she saw the full shelf of mineral water, Lin Sanju opened a box and took a bottle as she was feeling thirsty. Just then, she heard Marcy's and Luther's voice from the other side of the staff room door once again. "Xiaoju, what are you doing now? Can you think of a way to get back?" "I am okay, I found the supermarket's warehouse," Lin Sanju replied. She sat outside the staff room entrance deciding to rest for a while to regain her energy. There were confidence and resilience in her voice as she said, "I will definitely find a way to get back, don't worry." There were a few more muffled sentences from the other side as if the other 2 of them were trying to tell her some instructions, but thereafter there were no other sounds. Lin Sanju snapped the lighter shut, and the warehouse returned to its original dark silence. At this time, Wang Sisi must also be thinking of a strategy behind that door, right? Lin Sanju thought inwardly as she drank a mouthful of water, enjoying the cool fluid going down her throat. She really could not underestimate that little desiccated corpse. She made a lot of noise and movements when she was pulling out the keys to open the door, but Wang Sisi purposely kept very silent, so Lin Sanju totally did not suspect that she was opening the back door of the staff room. If she had not smelled the rotting stench that wafted out once the door opened, she would not have been alert enough to dodge Wang Sisi's attack. Now, the 2 routes back to the supermarket were blocked, similar to how their paths were blocked by the broken-down Land Rover. In the large hall, there was a weird, unpredictable forest. If she chose the path through the staff room, she had to bypass Wang Sisi. In any case, She had to vote for the lesser evil. After she waited for an unknown amount of time, Lin Sanju finally made her decision. She stood up silently in the dark and placed her light, water bottle, and other random things aside. She wrung her hands and gave a soft sigh. It was time to test out how powerful her overall physical enhancement ability was. She slotted the key lightly in the keyhole and turned left once. The metal lock made a tiny sound. In the absolute silence, that small sound was so loud that it was shocking. It was impossible that Wang Sisi did not hear it, and almost immediately, as if to prove her right, a chain of goo-goo sounds ranged out. Lin Sanju could sense something walking closer. She did not say a word but stealthily turned the door handle. The door slowly opened up a gap that was wide enough for a person. The heavy darkness remained silent, and it was as if even the flow of air had stopped. Almost abrupted, a black shadow suddenly shot out from that gap in a swoosh. It targeted the area right behind the door handle. The speed was too fast. Even with her body enhancement, Lin Sanju definitely wouldn't be able to dodge it. However, the attack which was supposed to certainly hit missed its target. Wang Sisi made a human sound after some time. She shook her mouthpart around the door area and realized that Lin Sanju had disappeared all of a sudden and was nowhere to be seen. Hesitating for a moment, Wang Sisi walked 2 steps toward the door cautiously. A sweet voice came out from her mouthpart. "Big sister, where are you? Sisi doesn't want to fight with you. Can you just let Sisi go, okay?" Nobody replied her. Outside the half-opened door, it was still that same silent darkness. She could not see Lin Sanju's figure or hear any movement. It was like there had never been a person that at all. A hand, so dry that it no longer resembled a human's, peeked from the door as if to push it open. It paused and retreated. After a while, a horrible-looking thing crept out stealthily from the room. That was Wang Sisi. After they had not seen it for days, it had become more shriveled, similar to security guard, its skin now layered on top of each other. Due to Luther's kick, there was a deep impression on its chest, thus even the last human-like vestige was lost. The gap was not wide, but it was sufficient for Wang Sisi. Big sister, I am out, don't be afraid, okay? Sisi just wants to go home to look for mommy." Its 2 white eyeballs rolled around searching the warehouse, but it couldn't spot Lin Sanju at all. It spun its mouthpart nervously. She could smell the scent of a live human's blood, but it could not tell where it was from. This made Wang Sisi, who had not eaten for days, rash and jittery. The childlike voice that was generated from its mouthpart was filled with a sobbing tone. "Big sister, if you don't come out, I will take it as your consent. Sisi is leaving, she is going home." The little girl's voice reverberated in the dark. She stabbed her mouthpart towards the back of the door, the only place that a person could hide. Her mouthpart, which shimmered with a metallic light, stabbed into nothing. "Are you going to suck your mother dry?" A plain, mocking voice came from above her. Wang Sisi was shocked. She immediately looked up. Before she could pull back her mouthpart from the back of the door, a black shadow fell on her. Following that moment, the door trapped her mouthpart. Before Wang Sisi could scream, there was a sudden flash of light above her head, and before she knew it, a chef's knife had penetrated its skull. In an instant, Wang Sisi's body along with its mouthpart fell to the ground with a pock, as it lost all its strength. Seeing that the corpse was motionless, Lin Sanju gave a sigh of relief. She had been crouching on top of the narrow ledge of the door. She remained silent before choosing an opportunity to jump down from the door. This was an extremely difficult feat. She never imagined that she would be able to execute such ninja-like action sequence before the new world descended. She pinched her nose as she carefully walked past the dead body and went to open the other door in the staff room, contemporary romance. As the door opened, the silver light resembling the moonlight, which the ability polishing agent emitted, shined on Lin Sanju's entire body. The shelves, used for block the door have already been removed by the 2 other outside. Luther was standing, and Marcy was sitting as they waited quietly for her to return. "Welcome back," Luther greeted cheerily, leaning on the wall, as he held the ability polishing agent in one hand. If one only used their naked eyes to look at the scenery, the intense sun that hung high in the sky was no different from any other summer. The dazzling sunlight shined down from the blue skies and only revealed its unspeakable malice when it blazed over the earth. Shriveled dead bodies covered in burns were found on every single street. Buildings split open under the high heat, and houses made of inferior materials had long disintegrated into small hills of rubble. There were cracks on the ground and occasionally, one could spot a considerably healthy duolujang moving around the ruins. In the short 2 months, the temperature continued rising every day, and on this day, it was as if all traces of humankind had melted under that heat. It was difficult to believe that this was once a highly developed human civilization. The air was dry and hot, no one knew where all that moisture went when the lakes and rivers evaporated. As far as their eyes could see, there was not a single bit of greenery left. Every path that it took, the truck would stir up a thick cloud of yellow dust which reached half the height of an adult, making it difficult to see much at all. Lin Sanju was sitting in the driver's seat and could not resist taking a look at the rearview mirror. Right behind her vehicle was a similar type of large goods truck and then another long public bus, but that was not the focus of her gaze. She narrowed her eyes and looked carefully at the thick column of smoke, in the distance, rising to the air. The place where the smoke rose from was exactly the shopping mall which had housed them for a month. After living there for such a long time, they finally had to leave. Lin Sanjo's train of thought involuntarily drifted back to their situation a month before. Back then, Lin Sanju had unintentionally found the supermarket warehouse which was packed with supplies. They were really ecstatic. Even without counting, they knew at one glance that the food and water in the warehouse were certainly sufficient for them to survive for 14 months. In addition to that, living in that underground supermarket meant that they did not have to worry about the problem of being under direct sunlight. They could even call it a totally ideal situation. The only problem they had was still that patch of tropical forest in the middle of the mall. Humans coveted for comfort after all. After the few of them had discussed for a while, they considered their situation and concluded that if they were to lock themselves in the supermarket, that abomination of a tropical forest outside should not be able to do anything to them. Since they had experienced a few days of tense, hair-raising incidents, they had used up a lot of their strength. In the name of recuperation, they decided to make the supermarket their home. The recuperation lasted for 2 to 3 weeks. As they did not have to worry about the lack of sustenance, while the shutter door kept out any threats of external enemies, the three of them had the first taste of a somewhat comfortable life in a new world. It was to the extent that after a month, Lin Sanju found that she became fatter when she randomly pinched her waist. Honestly speaking, the amount of fats wasn't that much, but it instantly evoked in her the image of fattened livestock. During that period of time, she did not develop a single new ability, and her movements had also slowed down considerably. Without any sense of crisis, she had even spent a few days just sleeping in the darkness. If they continued on like this, she knew that it would be detrimental for all of them. After they had discussed about it, they decided that they had to go and patrol the place. Firstly, it was for them to check the situation nearby, and next for them to train themselves. The idea seemed pretty good, but when they opened the metal shutters, the three of them froze. When they pulled open the shutter, it was around 4+ in the afternoon. However, the escalator that led up to the first floor was still shrouded in darkness. Lin Sanju looked blankly ahead and asked softly, "Does this mean that the sun sets that early now?" Luther was speechless. Suddenly, Marcy pointed upward yelling, "Look!" Lin Sanju and Luther looked in the direction that she pointed and their guts sunk at once. They observed a sudden slight movement from the portion of darkness that was covering the escalator as if a reaction from a stimulus. The movement wasn't their main concern. A little sunlight immediately seeped in, revealing the underside of the cover, which was an intricate green network of branches, tendrils, and leaves. The three of them finally realized why it was pitch dark outside the metal shutters. It was because the entire area was covered by plants. Contemporary romance. Subsequently, there were more movements in the shadow. All sort of large and small, densely packed green vines started stirring one by one as if they could smell the scent of a human. They crept slowly toward the metal shutter. They did not know who yelled first, but the three of them did not dare to tarry even for a second. They turned and rushed for the supermarket and pulled the shutters down with a clang. The green vines slammed noisily on the metal shutter. Unexpectedly, multiple bulges appeared on the heavy metal shutter. If they went out a few more times, it certainly wouldn't hold up much longer. Once they returned to the supermarket, there was a grim expression on all their faces. None of them expected that their position would change from them making the decision to isolate themselves from the world to becoming trapped here so quickly. "We can't stay here any longer," Lin Sanju smiled bitterly. "What should we do now?" "Even if we leave, we have to bring along the supplies from the warehouse," Marcy said, gritting her teeth tightly. "It is not difficult to bring those items with us. We can find a few large trucks outside, and we can try to pack as much as we can. The problem now is, how we can actually get out. The only exit had been entirely blocked by those vines, Lin Sanju asked worriedly. The three of them remained silent for a while. Suddenly, Luther exclaimed, "Ah!" and leapt up like a rabbit. He turned and ran toward the back of the supermarket, yelling at the same time, "The escalator exit isn't the only way. Xiao Ju, bring your keys along. There is still a back door behind." His words reminded Marcy of the same thing. She clapped her hands together, and her face brightened. "That's right. How could I have forgotten?" She pulled Lin Sanju along, following quickly behind Luther. Within a few seconds, they were standing at the back door of the supermarket. Ever since Lin Sanju had appeared in the staff room, Luther and Marcy had both completely forgotten about the back door. This was the first time that Lin Sanju even knew of the existence of this back door, which opened to who knows where. She prayed silently as she opened the door with her key. The heavens were on their side. The door opened to a narrow slope. Walking down the slope, the few of them found themselves beside a row of large rubbish bins. They were standing at the back side of the shopping mall. Apparently, this was the place where the staff washed their equipment and disposed of their rubbish. After they walked further down, they quickly saw a small road. When they looked back into the glass windows at the shopping mall now covered in green vines and plants, for the first time in their lives, they could not understand how that small road covered with cracks could look so cute. Ads by PubFuture. They knew what they had to do next. Firstly, they had to look for 3 vehicles. That wasn't hard at all since 80% of the human population had all died, leaving a city full of abandoned vehicles with empty tanks and working keys in their ignition switch. Without much effort, the 3 of them found 2 large freight trucks and a public bus. They got some batteries from an automobile repair shop and changed those in the vehicles, then they filled up a few jerrycans of petrol. They eventually got the vehicles to work. They drove the 3 large vehicles into the small road and parked them in a straight line after much difficulty navigating within the narrow confines. They managed to fill up their vehicles to the brink with food and water. Even after that, there were still a lot of supplies in the warehouse. As the 3 of them were not greedy, after figuring out that the amount in their vehicles should be sufficient, they laid both sides of the walkway with the remaining supplies for any possible lucky survivors. Before they left, Lin Sanju carried with her a few jerrycans of petrol. Luther and Marcy prepared a full carton of wine. "Are you ready?" Lin Sanju, who had grabbed a piece of brick, grinned at her companions. Seeing their nods, she yelled, "Okay. Let's start throwing." With whooping yells from Luther, bricks, rocks, chairs, and all sort of paraphernalia came falling down like meteor rain upon the shopping mall's glass windows, enveloped in plants. A series of bright clear sounds could be heard along half the street as glass fragments fell from midair like rain. The dark night was suddenly filled with the shimmering reflections from the glass. The tendrils and vines that were leaning against the windows suddenly dangled in midair as if they were unable to decide who to attack. But before those vines could trace the human scent back to the culprits, bottles after bottles of strong alcoholic beverages, and cans after cans of petrol flew into from the broken windows. In an instant, the plants were splashed with all that accelerants. The final step of setting the fire required a little more technique. Among the 3 of them, Marcy was the fastest and lightest. She held 4 to 5 lit matches in each hand and raced to the entrance of the shopping mall like a hare. She flung the matches, and they flew and landed into the large patch of greenery. The flames spread out, hissing and crackling. It was not quick but steadfast. In a short time, the first floor was fully lit up by a sea of red burning flames. Before even burning for 5 minutes, they heard a sharp shrill from the center of the large hall in the middle of the shopping mall. It sounded as if something was in pain. All the leaves started flailing around crazily. For whatever reason, Lin Sanju suddenly felt a sort of long-awaited ecstasy. She laughed out loud a few times and waved to the 2 people beside her saying, "Let's go." After that, she turned and was the first person to run out of the road. After the few of them had ran out of that street, they heard a large boom. The glass ceiling situated on the top floor of the shopping mall collapsed down to the ground due to fire, following which, half the building was totally buried in flames. They had parked the truck and bus far away from that location earlier. Each of them now drove a vehicle under the remaining starlight just before the sunrise. They hit the road starting on their unknown journey. Shaking her head, Lin Sanju banished the memories of the events that happened last night. She looked at her rear mirror once again with a serious look. She then turned on her tail light, slowed down her vehicle and stopped. What's wrong? Why aren't we continuing? Luther winded down his window and shouted loudly in Lin Sanju's direction. Lin Sanju opened the truck door and jumped down. She stood in the middle of the road and held a police baton in her hand. Someone is following behind us. She frowned as she braced the yellow dust in the air. The scorching sun overhead roasted everything with its intense heat. Once she stepped out of the vehicle, the torrid heat immediately made her breathing difficult. There was still wind in this hyperthermal hell, but it would be better if there weren't. Every bout of wind was as if a pot of red-hot coal had been thrown at their face. After they had got out of their vehicles, Luther and Marcy's brows furrowed deeply as they covered their noses and mouths. Ever since all the plants and trees have died out, the soil degraded into sand under the high heat due to desertification. The wind stirred up thick clouds of yellow sand wreaking havoc upon the land. Their eyebrows and eyelashes were all covered with sand particles, so it was difficult for them to open their eyes. They could only squint as they looked around. Once Marcy opened her mouth to speak, she started coughing due to the sand before she managed to say a few words. Are you sure? I was at the back, but I didn't spot any other cars behind us. When Lin Sanju got down from her truck, she conveniently grabbed a t-shirt and tied it to her face using it as a mask, so she felt much better compared to the other two. Tolerating the pain from the scalding yellow sand which lashed continuously at her exposed skin, Lin Sanju said quietly, I am certain that car had been following us for some time. But the sandstorm is really bad, and it is quite some distance from us, so it was only visible at times. Wait, it's coming. When she finished her sentence, they indeed spotted a car some distance away stirring up a trail of dust. A Citro, and so dirty that its color was indistinguishable, drove out of the churning storm of sand. Unexpectedly, when the driver saw that the three large vehicles had stopped, and Lin Sanju and her gang were in the middle of the road, the person braked sharply and turned his head as if he planned to escape. Unfortunately, the distance between the car and the three vehicles was too near, so this wasn't up to the driver. Lin Sanju sprinted forward and sped up and, before the Citro N could turn away, she leapt onto the hood of the like leopard. The hood of the car dipped which shocked the driver of the Citro N. Its wheels made an ear-piercing screech, and the driver inside shouted vaguely. Lin Sanju was rocked by the movement of the car, so she quickly laid low on the hood stabilizing herself before she yelled toward the car interior, get out. Within a blink of an eye, Luther and Marcy also rushed forward and surrounded the Citro N together with Lin Sanju. The car stopped, and its engine was cut. Through the dirty windscreen, Lin Sanju could see the vague outlines of a person. She could not tell if it was a male or female, young or old. It was incomprehensible how that person could still drive with such visibility. She had waited for a while before she knocked on the windscreen with her police baton impatiently, signaling for the driver to get out of his car. If she was not wrong, the car had been following them since they had left the shopping mall. The car door at the side of the driver's seat opened. A man wearing a crumpled western suit wiped his forehead as he stepped out. Ads by PubFuture. The man looked like he was only about 20 plus. He wasn't tall, and his skin was tanned. He had a round fleshy face, and the white shirt that he was wearing was now a dirty, blackish yellow. Lin Sanju did not know why, but she felt that if he had some whiskers, he would certainly look like a vole. Even though his suit looked like it was made from a good material, it did not seem to fit him well. His pants, far too long for him, were rolled up, revealing his ash-gray, knee-length socks. Who are you? Why are you following us? Marcy questioned with a frown. Contemporary romance. The vole-like man moved his tar-black little eyes and looked at the three of them panic-strickenly before he stammered, It wasn't on purpose. Luther scoffed at him, so you accidentally followed us all the way here. Lin Sanju jumped down from the car. She gripped the police baton and stood in front of the car not saying a word. The man appeared to be very afraid of Lin Sanju. When she got off his car, he immediately shifted a few steps away from her, putting some distance between himself and her. At the same time, he anxiously explained, No. Listen to my explanation. I've actually seen all of you much earlier. I don't mean any harm. I am a salesman for medical devices. That night, I had just finished entertaining my client. When he was driving me back, there was a sudden power outage, and we were stuck in the jam at the shopping mall. Get to the main point. Marcy shouted in a sterner tone, probably losing her temper as they were. Tormented by the sand. Ah, yes, yes. Anyway, we were stuck in front of the shopping mall, and we did not dare to get down from the car. We relied only on the carton of drinks in the car for 2 days. I saw the few of you a couple of times, entering and exiting. You seem to have adapted so quickly, it was impressive. When the man explained to this point, he even remembered to flatter them. Noticing that they did not react, he spat out the sand in his mouth, embarrassingly. Then, he continued, after that, on one night, a rather good-looking woman came to us. She said that she had water at home and told my client to get down to accompany her to get some water. I was distracted for a moment, and suddenly, my client disappeared. The women left and continued to the next car. The 3 of them were stunned for a short moment. Obviously, Kong Yun did not show mercy to the survivors who were on that street outside. When the man saw their expression, he pushed his luck and continued, I did not dare to remain in the car, so I ran to the convenience store that was across the road. I managed to survive till today. This morning, I saw all of you leaving. I was afraid too, so I followed behind. What's your name? Luther was starting to feel a little annoyed as the man was so long-winded. My name is Tian Minbo. Everyone calls me Voli. The man smiled and replied hurriedly. Apparently, she was not the only one that felt that way. Lin Sanju chuckled inwardly, but her cold expression remained the same as she asked, what do you want? Voli was startled and quickly replied, I really mean no harm. I have my own supply of food and water. I just want some companions. And, I wanted to give you an advice. An advice? You have been driving your vehicles for some time, right? Voli asked as he eyed the vehicles. I advise all of you to stop driving now. You should wait till night comes. Why? Luther looked around, still frowning. The spot they were at was not very safe. In the past, the area was a famous park. It was originally a vast expanse of greenery in the best part of the city. However, after this 1 month, any remnant of the original park had long disintegrated. All that remained was just sand as far as the eye could see and the black charred remains of countless trees, along with the mixture of this combination stirred by the wind. They could even see the indistinct outlines of a few duolujang wandering around. The sky was a hopeless mustard yellow accompanied by a scalding sun. This weather is really abnormally hot. If you continue driving, you will burn out the engines. You better believe me, I have already damaged 1 car, and that was a Mercedes-Benz. Still, it broke down. It nearly burst into flames. Let alone your trucks and bus. Voli wiped the sand off his face, showing a sincere look. It's true. If you don't believe it, you can try to touch your engines. Hearing this, Lin Sanju sighed and stopped Marcy, who was heading back to check. You don't have to go. It's true. Even his Citroën is hot to touch. When Voli heard what Lin Sanju said, he immediately moaned and turned to open his hood. A white smoke accompanied by a burnt scent drifted out. It almost instantaneously dissipated due to the sandstorm. Voli fiddled with the engine nervously. He finally lifted his head with a face still filled with lingering fear. That was close. It nearly broke down. The 3 of them exchanged looks. They were at a loss. If even that France-manufactured Citroën was going to break down soon, what more could be said of their normal vehicles? They were certainly in a worse state. It seemed like that had no choice but to wait here with Voli for their engines to cool down. The only thing was that Lin Sanju was opposed strongly to staying here due to the surroundings. Their surroundings were too empty. After the park, which covered the area of a few thousand square meters, had become destitute of vegetation, there was an almost boundless, unobstructed view of the area. That is to say, if they met any danger, they wouldn't be able to find a place to hide. Marcy sighed, it looks like we'll have to wait. That's right. Besides, it is too hot outside, so it is not a good place to chat. Why don't all of you come into my car? We can chat in the car. Let's be friends. Seeing that the others were convinced by him, Voli quickly opened his door eagerly, even offering Marcy a bottle of water. I don't have a specific place that I want to go, I just want to find a few companions. Where are you all heading? If you don't mind, let me go along with you. The 3 of them looked at each other and did not reply for a while. After that whole incident with Kong Yun, they knew that they had to be more cautious. On the other hand, they knew that they could not let the incident affect all their future decisions. No matter what, they would definitely need to interact with other people. When Lin Sanju thought of this, she said, you can come along with us, but you need to tell us what's your ability. Voli made an, oh, shape with his mouth. Don't tell me that you don't know anything about abilities after this 1 month. Lin Sanju gave a cool expression and purposely used a threatening tone. How are we supposed to trust you and be your companions if we don't even know what you can do? Even though she put it that way, Luther and Marcy looked at each other with some unease. They could not blame him if he did not want to reveal his ability, it wasn't really wrong. But they did not anticipate that Voli would nod his head with little hesitation. So you already knew that, okay, I will show you. After he had said this, he took out a mobile phone from his pocket. The mobile phone was in a cheapskate plastic casing, making it look very unfashionable. Voli pressed a few buttons on the screen, then showed the screen to the three of them. The screen showed an ongoing call, and the party on the other side was actually 110-1. This mobile phone is my ability. 110 is the only number that I can call right now. If I was under attack, I could dial 110, and in the time frame of 5 to 10 minutes, I will be impervious to all attacks. Of course, it works faster than my demonstration. Voli looked a little timid as he asked, is this okay? While Lin Sanju was still considering, with knitted brows, Marcy had already taken the first step, turned to look at her for confirmation. I think that is enough, right? Xiaoju. After that, she gave Voli her outstretched hand and smiled, let's help each other out in the future. Translator notes. 1110, the emergency telephone number used to reach police services in Iran, Germany, Estonia, China and Japan. Also used to reach the fire and rescue services in Norway and Turkey. Wikipedia.